Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all so much for coming today. Welcome to the official launch of the fourth annual Radow College 365 Days of Learning and Service. I'm Michael Chen. I'm the Associate Dean for Student Success and Engagement for the college. I'm so glad you could join us today and learn about the theme for this year, Universal Design. Dean Kalkinen, she has a schedule conflict today, so I'll be speaking on behalf of the Dean. So you might ask yourself, first and foremost, what exactly is universal design? And how does it relate to higher ed? So according to the U.S. General Services Administration, universal design is about developing solutions to meet the needs of all users, with and without disabilities. Universal design can refer to the design of course content in the digital space. So for example, someone with hearing impairment might be taking an online class and need closed captioning for online lecture videos. So you'll be hearing from one of our colleagues, Mr. Jason Rodenbeck, about the work that KSU is doing in this domain. Universal design can also be applied to the physical space, including sidewalk ramps that are accessible for individuals in wheelchairs. So Kennesaw State University and the Radow College, we have long been engaging in the domain of universal design. Several of our faculty members have published and taught courses related to universal design. You'll be hearing from two faculty members today, including our colleague, Professor Will Carter, who recently published a book chronicling his personal journey after a traumatic car accident. Our colleague, Dr. Mariam Pirucci, will share her scholarly work related to disability studies. We also have one student speaker, Anne McQuaid, who will talk about her own experiences as she navigates her studies at KSU. Now, in addition to our KSU speakers, we're so glad to have Mr. Hunter McFerron with us here today. Hunter is the manager of Assistive Technology Service Acquisition at Georgia Tech, and he works in the Center for Inclusive Design and Innovation. Thank you so much, Hunter, for being with us here today and for sharing your wisdom. Please join me in welcoming our speakers.
You don't know the importance of accessibility and universal design until you have to. As you might be able to tell, I'm a disabled man. When I was 17 years old, I was in a car accident on October of my senior year of high school. My 95 Honda Accord was in a head-on collision with a Suburban. I suffered a stroke, a brain injury, a seizure, a collapsed lung, a ruptured spleen. After removing part of my skull to relieve the swelling, I was put into a coma. After 3 weeks, I awoke to a different world. See, when someone's in a coma, the doctors encourage to play music that the person enjoyed to help him or her wake up. After 3 weeks, my eyes opened to the stirring sounds of Sufjan Stevens' Chicago, whose lyrics go, "All things go to recreate us, all things grow." I will return to this, but first, a detour. Prior to my accident, I had the backstory of any typical academic. AP classes, honor society, model UN, debate team, president of drama club, and my school had just performed one of my plays the previous spring. I was heading places. Then, after Twisted Metal, Broken and Bloodied, I'm in a wheelchair, diapers for a moment, and have the inability to remember what happened 5 minutes ago. By the grace of God, I am alive. But school went from an easy proof of my abilities to an arduous task that I failed I could not complete. I am blessed, though. I made it through to graduation, fretting all the while. I go to college, and I have a professor freshman year who tells me that she doesn't allow extra time on assignments, quizzes, or tests. Knowing what I know now, I would have said, "Thank you so much. I will be seeing you in court for violating the Americans with Disabilities Act." But back then, I was scared. I was just trying to make it through the day without looking too disabled. And I struggled. Oh, how I struggled. Unfortunately for me, though, perseverance is one of my greatest strengths and one of my worst faults. Soon I gave up on everything but school. I ate in my dorm room, lived on 4 hours of sleep, and focused solely on keeping my scholarship. The fall of 2008, my freshman year of college, was one of the darkest years of my life. I drifted through a lost boat, looking ravenously for land. In my freshman core class, basically my English 1101, I failed my first 2 papers, got C's on the next 2, and a B on the last. I ended the semester with an A- because of a curve that none of us thought was coming. I worked hard, got the result I wanted, but my mental health paid dearly for it. Fast forward to graduate school. I'm healed to a greater degree than before, but I am still tired all the time. I have no time for anything but school. And sleep? What sleep? My mental health is deteriorating, and when I go to the doctor about feeling lightheaded and drained all the time, even if I somehow manage to get rest, I'm told that I'm okay and to simply stop taking Claritin D. Surprisingly, not the solution. Then I'm called to meet with the head of the graduate program. She talks about my showing up late, struggling with time management and organization, and all I can tell her is that I'm trying. It might not look like it, but by God, I'm trying. And with almost tears in my eyes, I tell her, I don't know how to try any harder. 3.5 years later, I learned that I have bradycardia. It's a condition where your heart beats at half the rate it should. See, I was trying as hard as I could. Yet, I was looking like I wasn't trying as hard as I should, but I was giving more effort than was healthy. I tell you this to make one point. I know from personal experience that you might be giving it all you've got, but it looks like you're not trying at all. This informs my teaching, because I always tell my students 3 things. First, I always assume the best of intentions. I always approach students with care and concern, not anger. And I always let my students let them know that if they're struggling, I understand. This is because not all abilities are visible. Sometimes not all disabilities are known, not even to the students themselves. Furthermore, effort is not always connected to output. A disabled student might be giving 100%, but on the outside, it might look different. Accessibility is opening learning to all. Accommodations for physical learning disabilities, access to resources, but it's also empathy. Because of my background and my struggle to receive the same compassion and understanding, I have sought to create a classroom where every student can feel successful. Do you need more time? Ask me. You're struggling with an assignment? Ask me. Did you fall off the course and want to re-engage? Welcome back. The best thing you can do for your disabled students is to assume the best of intentions. Approach with care rather than conflict. Offer empathy no matter the student's apparent previous decisions. The impact will be loud. I always tell my students the story of my accident, my brain injury, my stroke and coma, as well as my struggles my senior and freshman year. I tell them because I want them to know that I struggled, so if they find that they're having difficulty, they will experience empathy rather than judgment. I know the power of this, the importance of this. A student in 2020 told me the power of my openness. She's a brain injury survivor, and she sent me an email that rocked my world. Thank you, Professor Carter, for being open about your injury. You helped me love myself more. Heart full. This is one of the best students I've ever had. Yes, she had accommodations. Yeah, but those accommodations helped her reach her highest potential. She has her bachelor's now, and I can't wait to see what glorious things that she does with her life. If I can circle back to that song from the beginning, the one I woke up out of a coma to, all things go, all things grow to recreate us. My injury, my disability, this is not a flaw. It's part of my growth, my recreation into someone new. This is someone who understands the importance of accessibility, the importance of universal design, the importance of care and empathy, and knows the value that these bring to our students. My disability is a strength and a gift. It has made me a better teacher, and I'd like to believe a better person. Thank you.
Thank you to Michael and the Dean's Office for organizing this initiative. I'm Marian Carici, an assistant professor of English specializing in disability studies and global Anglophone literature. I've been working in the field of disability studies for around 14 years, and disability has been a part of my life for as long as I can remember, starting with sibling experiences. The concept of neurodiversity didn't exist yet in the 90s when I was growing up, but that's the word that I would use today. When I first heard of disability studies as an academic field, I didn't think it had anything to do with me, my family, or my interests, because like a lot of people, I thought that disability meant something physical. But in graduate school, I took a course on personal narratives of autism, and in the following semester enrolled in a disability history course. And I finally started to see the connections across different types of disability. I found a sense of power and liberation in the realization that if we were to reimagine society in ways that enabled full participation of people with all different types of disability, whether mental, physical, or sensory, life would improve for everyone, right? So this is what disability justice activists call collective access. And it's why I'm so excited about this year's theme. Access is a lot more than ramps, elevators, automatic door openers, and designated parking spots. It's a broad concept incorporating the physical environment, social environments, and the world of information. The Americans with Disabilities Act was passed in 1990, but we've been slow to apply its access mandates to the digital world. In April of 2024, the United States Department of Justice's Civil Rights Division revised Title II of the ADA to require state and local governments to bring their websites and mobile applications in line with the technical standards of the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. Around that time, I started working with two colleagues in the English department, Erin Ball, who's here with us, and Laura Howard, on a proposal for a new course on writing for accessibility, which considers these digital accessibility standards in the contexts of both disability rights and writing studies. After an introduction to the principles of universal design and disability justice, the course trains students to make digital communications accessible through a series of workshops. Some of these workshops are more technical than others, essentially showing students how to make materials more easily navigable by screen readers, utilizing features like tagged headings and descriptive links, learning to remediate inaccessible PDFs, as Jason can tell you, how to tag the document, set up tables, and deal with page features like headers, page numbers, and footnotes is perhaps the most tedious of the skills that we cultivate in the course. Students quickly pick up on the fact that remediation, or making something accessible after the fact, is more difficult than creating an accessible document from the outset. In comparison, using Microsoft Word and PowerPoint, Google Docs, and Google Slides to build in accessibility from the start is a breeze. Because platforms vary and the way accessibility tools are structured can change as software gets updated, accessibility skills can never be reduced to a list of steps to take. Instead, the goal is to cultivate the kind of digital intuition that can be applied across platforms based on a familiarity with what an accessible end product should look like, right? And an awareness of the tools that exist to help create it. There's also a more creative and artistic side to our skill building. The course introduces students to plain language, which is a clear and direct writing style that uses concise syntax and familiar vocabulary to convey ideas. Plain language also entails communications beyond the verbal, right? So modifying the visual layout of the information on web pages, brochures, emails, and so on. Next, we examine the art of writing image descriptions, whether for photos and social media content or for works of art, graphic narratives, infographics, and other sources of visual information. This is a deeply creative act of translation in which the writer has to first interpret the image and then make decisions based on audience and context about what information to prioritize, how much detail to include, and what words to use to best convey the tone and aesthetic effect of the image. A related skill, adding audio descriptions to video content, is a more advanced version of this process with the added challenge of time limits and coordinating with the main audio track. Other skills, like writing captions and transcripts, are a blend of technical proficiency with creative innovation. Captions have become easier to add as the quality of machine-generated captions improves, but editing is still crucial, and I had fun talking with students about how captions can be an expressive component of a film, actively contributing to its artistic vibe. A good example of this is the sound descriptions on Stranger Things, with phrases like creatures biting wetly to illustrate the upside down, or menacing industrial synth to illustrate the vibes of the music. So I've created a digital handout full of free online accessibility resources that I use in my workshops, and which you can also use to build your own digital accessibility skills. Since we don't have any slides, I'm just gonna give you the tiny URL that I made. So it's tinyurl.com/access365. tinyurl.com/access365. You can go to that, check it out, feel free to bookmark it in your browser. It's just a Google Doc that I've shared. And with so many great resources freely available, now is a great time to generalize accessibility skills across the population. I'm going to be proposing making the Writing for Accessibility course part of the regular curriculum here at KSU. So in the meantime, the next time it will be run is summer 2026. So look out for English 4490, Writing for Accessibility. In the summer catalog, it's a great class for students in a variety of disciplines with professional applications across a range of careers. Thank you.
Hi, I'm excited to participate in this 365 Days of Learning event, and kudos to all of you who helped make it happen. My name is Ann McQuaid, and I'm a first-generation, non-traditional senior pursuing an English degree with minors in nonprofit management and technical communication. For about the last decade, I've volunteered with various nonprofits that support the deaf, hard of hearing, blind, low vision, and deaf-blind communities. I returned to school with one goal: to become more effective in supporting these groups, especially through fundraising. Universal design aims to create buildings, products, and environments that everyone can access, understand, and use, regardless of age, ability, or other factors. When we proactively create products with that principle in mind, everyone benefits. Not every person learns the same way, though. Some of us learn best by listening, some through visual media, and others prefer to learn by doing. A video lecture with captions allows deaf, hard of hearing students, as well as those with limited English proficiency, and those who may be studying in noisy places to access the material. Tools like Microsoft Read Aloud and screen readers can voice written material, not only for people who are blind or low vision, but for anyone who learns by listening. Universal design isn't universal in the sense of one size fits all. Sometimes it's more about flexibility and adaptation. Not every assignment is equally accessible to every student. However, when students and instructors work creatively and collaboratively, I believe not only can we agree on suitable alternative approaches, but in many cases, the entire class can benefit. I'd like to share two quick examples from my own coursework that illustrate both the challenges and potential solutions. One of the first issues I encountered was in a history class. The class was asked to interpret a particular map. Now, I grew up reading maps in the dark days before GPS existed, so I understand maps. However, this map was color-coded, and I'm entirely colorblind. About 8% of men and a small percentage of women have some degree of color blindness, most often an inability to correctly distinguish between red and green. Despite this, maps, charts, and graphs frequently rely only on color to convey information. As an alternative assignment, my professor and I agreed that I could feed the image into an AI image description tool so that I could understand what it is I was supposed to analyze. But I also converted this map to grayscale to show with my classmates what it looked through my eyes. Lastly, I added additional cues such as stripes, cross-hatching, and dots to regions of the map to make it more readable. Several students said they either had some color perception loss or knew someone who did. So they appreciated the demonstration of how to make sure everyone, even those with color perception loss, can understand their visual media. That brings me to another situation where accessibility didn't quite go as planned, but turned into a learning moment for everyone. In Dr. Q's Learning for Accessibility class, one of the assignments involved learning how to make PDFs accessible. An accessible PDF allows a screen reader user to navigate headings, links, and includes alt text descriptions of images. But the software the class used, called Equidocs, is not accessible. It creates an overlaid patchwork of zone boxes labeled with tiny tags and a long menu of tools with text that was too small for me to read. It requires constant zooming in and zooming out, and the reflowability is terrible. By reflowability, I mean that when you enlarge and make the screen larger or smaller, some of it would fall off the edge of the screen, and I could, that doesn't work. So yes, the irony of having an inaccessible tool whose purpose is to make documents accessible was not lost on anyone. However, Dr. Q and I agreed that instead I would demonstrate to the class what a screen reader is and how it works. We believed a demonstration would be a great way for my fellow students to understand the need for accessible websites and documents. So while screen sharing in Teams, I demonstrated how I navigate the Kennesaw State University main webpage using Microsoft Narrator. I also showed how a blind or low vision user such as myself summons an Uber using VoiceOver on an iPhone. While Dr. Q included resources such as the Wave Accessibility Checker to review a website for accessibility issues, I felt that it was important to show my classmates two features that are included for free with the hardware and software they likely already own. Narrator is included in every Windows installation and VoiceOver in every iPhone, and by the way, Android phones have a similar feature called TalkBack. Once you know about these built-in tools, if you want to ensure your web page or document are accessible, you can use an accessibility checker or you can test it for yourself. I've mentioned collaboratively working with my instructors, but implied in this collaboration is that we advocate for our needs when some part of the class material or an assignment needs to be modified. It's not always easy to point out accessibility issues to a professor, but I've learned that self-advocacy, like any skill, improves with practice. I try to keep in mind that despite my personal experience with disability and years of volunteering in the community, I'm still learning how to make materials accessible. So when I contact an instructor about a video that lacks captions or a document with insufficient contrast, I do my best to write from a perspective that we have a mutual problem to solve. Accessibility is not about making special exceptions. It's about creating a world where everyone has a fair chance to learn, participate, and succeed. When students and instructors work together, creatively, collaboratively, and with empathy, we don't just solve individual problems. We raise the standard for everyone, and that's a goal we're striving for 365 days a year.
Thank you, Anne, for the information about Equidocs, which my unit has purchased, and that's very helpful. My name's Jason Rodenbeck, and I work primarily in the field that has already been fairly well described to you, and that is digital accessibility. Just like Marion was just saying about the new rule that came out in April of '24, our unit is working very hard to help the university be compliant with that new rule. Recently we just tested new software that will help replace some of the softwares that we're using, hopefully to make them more accessible, but also to broaden the use. One of the things that has emerged because of this new rule is not just that WCAG became the standard, it is also that it is applied to beyond just the website and the online classroom. It includes the in-person classroom where digital sources are shared. It implies any document that gets shared over email that gets sent out to the entire university. Those things all also have to be compliant. And so we're working on acquiring tools and training and a plan to help the entire university rise up to this new standard. Since I feel like so much has already been said about digital accessibility, I think I'd like to share something kind of personal, if that's okay. So I didn't set out to fix PDFs for a living. to tag PDFs. That was not a little thing that little Jason Rodenbeck put on a cowboy hat and went out and played pretending to tag PDFs. It was not something I thought I was going to do. However, I'm very passionate about the technical work that I do. And that has largely to do with my wife and my stepson. When I married Vanjie, Noah was about 12, autistic, and struggling in school. And I have never seen anybody as anxious about a meeting as watching my wife and my stepson get ready for an IEP meeting, because they've been through some brutal ones. And if you've been through an IEP meeting, you may have had similar experiences. Getting the test results back, hearing, oh, he's behind in this, he's done this, he's got this problem and that problem, it is brutal. And the sickness and the anxiety, I realized as I've watched him grow up, he's got a job now, he's got his own car, he's working through a wonderful program called Tommy Nobis. If you're interested, Tommy Nobis is a great program that helps students with autism find work. I realized something I had never really noticed, that our culture has been completely unprepared, and I'm going to use this language very carefully. Our culture is disabled at serving all of its members. And that's actually one of the pieces of universal design that I think is incredibly helpful to think. It changes your thinking. Universal design doesn't say, these people are disabled, so we've got to find ways to make them able to get up a ramp or get through a door, or be able to watch a video. What universal design says is it's the spaces that are disabled. It's the content that is unable to serve the people. It's not the people that are disabled. Disability advocates like to say that disability, and as I think William has pointed out exceptionally well, disability is a minority that any of us can join at any time. And we don't think, and that's because we're mortal. We break, we get sick, we get in an accident. Things happen that we don't plan. And the fact is that most of us, if not all of us, are going to experience disability at some point in our life, whether permanently or temporarily. The field I studied, as I said, I didn't grow up wanting to fix PDFs. It's just how lucky my life got. The field I studied was theology, and that always shapes the way. So I know people are, don't preach, Jason. So I'm not gonna jump into a sermon, but it shapes my reflection on this. And Marion's already heard this, so I apologize, you're gonna hear it again. I was influenced by a book called Living Gently in a Violent World. And one of the authors is a man who has a colored past, but his name was Jean Vanier. Vanier started a series of communities called the large communities. And these were where people with intellectual disabilities lived with people without disabilities in a community. And in the book, one of the themes that emerges is that there is power in there's power in acceptance and embrace of weakness. That our weakness is what makes us human. And by accepting that, we embrace our humanity. And they illustrate it with a story of a young deaf girl who dreamed that she died and gone to heaven. And she dreamed that in heaven she got to meet Jesus. And she woke up the next day and she was signing to her friends that she had died and gone to heaven and that she met Jesus. And everybody thought this was very interesting and maybe a little silly. And so they asked her, what was Jesus like? And she said, oh, he was wonderful and his signing was perfect. Now, those of us who aren't disabled may stop for a minute and think, well, wait, she didn't dream about having her hearing back? No. Because for her, heaven wasn't suddenly losing this thing that we might consider a weakness. For her, heaven was just being recognized and spoken to and included. Vanier frequently said of people with intellectual disabilities and the elderly, and by the way, this is the same reason why we have a tendency when there's hungry kids on TV to turn the channel real quick. It's not very pleasant, right? Or we tell children not to look at the person in the wheelchair at the store. The reason we typically abled people look away from those of us with disabilities is because, and I'm disabled too, those of us with disabilities remind those of us without of our weakness, of our capacity to be disabled. And we challenge the illusions of power and independence that are in the world. It's a reminder that we are all weak. The one point I want to bring today is this. When we make efforts to make the world accessible for people with disabilities, it's not out of pity, it's not out of magnanimity, and it shouldn't be because it's the law. The disabled don't need us to fix them. The disabled deserve to be seen and included and respected. And our society does this to our own benefit because the disabled are also humans with their own gifts and their own contributions to make. Remember that we are all interdependent on one another. We all need each other. And independence is a myth. The things that we think of as power and strength and status are all illusions. We need each other. And I've been very encouraged, almost a little emotionally encouraged today to hear 2 or 3 people say the word empathy. I think we're at a strange point in our time where the word empathy is a word that's got some strings attached now. Empathy is not weakness. Empathy is maybe the one tool that we actually have that can help turn our weakness into strength. Empathy is how we share our humanity and how we become truly strong. It requires strength and it requires courage. So my encouragement to you this year, as you learn about accessibility and universal design, to keep in mind that when we care for those of us who are different from us, we are taking care of ourselves. Because we are all different. We are all differently abled. And you may find, I think you will find, that in doing the work of accessibility, you find yourself coming closer to others in community, and you will be stronger because of it. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Hunter McFerrin. I work with the Tools for Life program over at the Center for Inclusive Design and Innovation at Georgia Tech. My title is the Assistive Technology Acquisition Services Manager. Try and say that 5 times fast. I feel like Georgia Tech and plain language don't always go hand in hand. But I really just want to start off by saying how grateful I am to be here today. It's really a privilege to be here at KSU's 365 Days of Learning Kickoff. As I've really seen and heard, this event seems to be about bringing people together through ideas, dialogue, and shared experiences. And that's really that spirit of connection is exactly what drives the work that I do every day. So as I mentioned, at Georgia Tech, I serve with the Tools for Life program. Tools for Life has been Georgia's Assistive Technology Act program since 1991. And for more than 3 decades, we've had just one mission to connect Georgians with disabilities to devices, services, and supports that make life more accessible. So I'm going to start off by sharing a little bit about the Center for Inclusive Design and the work that we do through Tools for Life. CIDI, as we call it, was created to advance accessibility, inclusion, and usability in every area of life, from education and healthcare to workplaces and communities. This ranges from document accessibility services to research, and even a dedicated Braille production unit. Over the years, it's grown into a national leader supporting accessibility not only in Georgia, but across the country. And Tools for Life is really a cornerstone of that mission. Since our founding, we've built a statewide lending library of thousands of assistive technology devices. We've expanded training and technical assistance programs for schools, employers, and healthcare providers to ensure that inclusion and universal design is really woven into everyday practice. We're especially proud of several milestones that reflect the reach and impact of our work. We've collaborated with the Georgia Department of Education to expand schools' access to inclusive learning materials and assistive technologies that support literacy, communication, and device use. We've also partnered with Georgia Tech researchers to develop innovative accommodation assessment tools for older adults and individuals with disabilities in the workplace. We also support the ongoing efforts of our partner, Friends of Disabled Adults and Children, as they expand and deliver disaster relief by providing home medical equipment to communities across the country after disastrous events. And during the COVID-19 pandemic, our team worked alongside the CDC to make emergency communications accessible, ensuring that vital information reached all Georgians, including those with cognitive impairments, vision loss, and hearing loss. Today, our work continues to evolve as we explore new frontiers in technology, from adaptive gaming and AI-powered solutions to tools that can help older adults live safely and independently as long as possible. I'm going to speak a little bit on my own backstory now. I actually began my career as a speech-language pathologist, working both with children and adults to help them communicate with their peers and loved ones. For me, for really every client that I worked with, every course I was taking part of, each step along the way, for me, I think trust and connection were the biggest themes that drove all the work that I did. Really, my heart's work was working with the autism community and communication devices. And I really feel that some of the most impactful and meaningful sessions I ever had were just those where I took the time to really listen to my clients, to build that trust, that friendship with them, and just to kind of grow and learn from each other. It wasn't always about the frameworks, the interventions I was giving, the devices and technology we used. Really that connection, I think, was the most powerful piece. And this is going to sound a little corny, but I really feel all of us were put on earth for a reason, and that's to grow with each other, to learn from one another, and to support each other. And that belief is really what led me to the work that I do and continues to lead me now. In my work at Tools for Life, that same idea of connection takes many forms. Whether I'm providing a student with a communication device so that they can take control of their world and interactions, helping an older adult find a device or modification that helps them stay in their home independently, or even if I'm helping a patient with a spinal cord injury get reconnected with things like TikTok, gaming, and all the other things that they love. In each case, technology is an important piece, but it's really never the whole story. The true impact, I think, lies in the human connections and opportunities that it makes possible. That's why, at its heart, I believe that our work in accessibility and universal design is about more than equipment or training. It's about empowering folks to participate fully in education, employment, and community life. Ultimately connecting them with these possibilities. Because at the end of the day, I believe that accessibility and universal design, they're really about the dignity, independence, and confidence that comes when those barriers are removed. So as you all embark on this year of learning, I encourage you to keep that idea in mind. Each of us has the power to create connections, whether we're inclusively designing products and ideas, or we're just intentionally listening to each other, or really just ensuring someone has a seat at the table. That's been the heartbeat of Tools for Life for over 30 years, connecting people, resources, and opportunities so that everyone has a chance to participate fully. I really see that same spirit here today as KSU launches a year dedicated to learning together. So thank you all for having me.
So good afternoon, everyone. I'm Bernadette Heckman. I'm the college's new Associate Dean of Research. And I'd like to give the closing remarks to today's amazing event. And it's just been such a privilege to be here today. And on behalf of the Norman J. Radow College of Humanities and Social Sciences, I just wanted to thank you, our students, our staff, our faculty for attending today's kickoff event. I'm especially grateful to our amazing speakers for sharing their expertise and perspectives on universal design and disability awareness. And your insights, your lived experiences highlight the importance of this work and inspire us to continue to move forward. I'm energized by the innovative approaches demonstrated here at KSTU, at Georgia Tech, and throughout the metro Atlanta area. And we're very fortunate to benefit from a wealth of support resources. Yet today's conversation also makes clear that there's still much work to do. Today's event marks the beginning of our 365 Days of Learning and Service series for the academic year. I look forward to connecting with you and seeing you at future 365 Days of Learning and Service events. And together we can make a lasting difference. Thank you.